The City of Johannesburg has assured residents that it has put contingency plans in place to minimise the impact of the water supply interruptions, which will start today. The Rand Water says the major water supply shutdown is expected to last for about 54 hours and should only result in low pressure in some areas. The shutdown is part of Rand Water's infrastructure maintenance programme. Johannesburg Member of the Mayoral Committee for Environment and Infrastructure, Nico, Jager, says there's no need for residents to panic.
Yes, I can reassure you that I've spoken to Joburg Water probably about 20 minutes ago, and they've actually informed me that since the shutdown, our reservoirs have actually improved in terms of water levels. So we are still very much confident that by the end of the shutdown period, the work being completed, we will still have sufficient water for residents across the city.
Can you quantify for me on a normal day in the city of Johannesburg how much of water is consumed, and how would the shutdown and not getting water from that one purification plant affect the entire output?
Yeah, Johannesburg received water from a number of bulk pipelines. One of them being this specific B11 pipeline coming via Vereniging. In Johannesburg, we use roughly 1.8 billion litres of water per day. As a result of the work, the maintenance work that's being done, it is believed that we will only be able to get up to 1.5 billion litres of water a day. So there'll only be a shortfall of 300 million litres of water a day. It sounds like a lot, but it's quite easy for us to then, what we do on our side is to just restrict the flow from our reservoir. So it's like taking a tap and just closing it a little bit so you have less pressure, and that's about the extent of what we will feel if it comes to that. But at this point in time, there is no reason for anybody to panic or to stockpile. Stockpiling only means that you're going to waste water at the end of the day.
We know that some areas have been warned that they might be affected more than others. Can you give us an indication of which areas these are?
Yeah, those areas are not particularly in Johannesburg. Those are areas, other municipalities, smaller municipalities with less capacity probably in terms of their reservoir capacity. In Johannesburg, we are still fine and still believe that the impact felt will be minimal. It is, if we do run into problems, it will be in the high-lying areas, and there we can use an example like Northcliffe, for instance, where you pump water from the reservoir to a water tower, because for water distribution we use gravity, and where we then have to pump water and you have a restriction in flow as well, that is where we will have or might have pressure problems. But at this point in time, that's not even an option. We don't even think that will come to that.
Remaining with the story, SABC News earlier spoke to Rand Water's Justice Mohale.
Rand Water has two water purification plants. We have Jager, which is the biggest one. It's not in any way going to be affected by today's project. We have another one called Vereniging Water Purification Plant. That one, it's going to be partially functional because we are going to install a valve between a newly laid pipeline, which is B19, and the existing pipeline, which is B11. The aim for this new pipeline is to augment the supply of raw water into our network as the demand is ever increasing.
We know that this does not mean that the waters are going to run dry, but what exactly is going to happen for water supply in the next 2 days?
What we will be doing will be installing that valve, but we are still going to be purifying. As I'm saying, even in the station that we are going to make those connections, water will be purified partially there. That station, the one that's going to be affected, on daily basis it purifies 1,300 megaliters of water. We are just going to take only 600 megaliters. So which means it will be partially functioning and people must not be concerned or must not be scared and start stocking water, because that is going to drain our system. And if our system is completely drained, it's going to take some days before we raise the water levels again.
Well, for more on this story, I'm joined in studio by my colleague, Hasina Gori. Thanks very much. You've been very busy this morning interviewing all those people. Do you think it was best for the Rand Water authorities not to tell the public that they were doing this whole installation in the first place? Because by virtue of telling us, it kind of raises the panic that they don't want us to have.
Mm-hmm. I think that's both counterintuitive, you know, sometimes not knowing is better.
Yeah.
I know, as much as they've put out announcements, some of the people that we spoke to in different areas here in Johannesburg said they weren't aware of it, that some of them were building managers and said they weren't aware of it and now went into panic when we asked them, saying, okay, now what happens? They were like, no, you know, just calm down. The waters are not going to run dry.
Yes.
The pressure might be low.
Yes.
And that's what Rand Water wants people to be aware of. City of Johannesburg is saying, do not stockpile. Don't go out and, you know, fill up your buckets and stuff, because that's not going to happen. And you're not going to not have water in your taps.
Yes.
But what happens is if the reservoir levels run low, and they have to restart and fill that, that's when you're going to have more problems. Then it's going to take longer than 2 days for our water problems or our water issues to come back to normality. Here it's just 2 days where they're saying we're shutting off supply only from one power plant or one purification plant, which is a Vereeniging one.
Yes.
And they've also said that it's only by half of its usual capacity. So it's still running, it's still going to purify, but by half its capacity.
Right.
We've heard also from the City of Johannesburg, it normally gets 1.8 billion litres per day. Now it's 1.5 billion, and it's only a 3 billion shortfall, and that's when they're going to restrict the pressure so that it allows for water to continue running. But once we stockpile, we're going to deplete what they have, and
that's right.
Our reservoir can run for 2 days on a full capacity.
Yes.
So it should be fine for the 54 hours. But if we stockpile, then we're going to have real issues.
Yeah. So last week, Mr. Jager, he did say that they were planning to ensure that the reservoirs were at least 95% full. When you spoke to him this morning, had they managed to achieve that?
It's, from what I understood, all our reservoirs were above 95%. It was doing way better than it even was doing at the morning. So they've really pushed to fill these reservoirs to the best capacity to ensure that while this maintenance is going on, that the waters and, you know, taps will continue running.
In terms of the low pressure, did we get a sense of where that's likely to be more prevalent?
So we know high-lying areas, so they explain Northcliffe being one of the areas because it uses gravity to push in, and now you're not getting that pumping coming through as well, so that way you might find it. So in those areas,
yes.
We know in Vereeniging as well, they've warned residents there specifically that they might find that they don't have water or the pressure might be lower. Outside the City of Johannesburg, so Ekurhuleni as well, you might see that that's one of the high-lying areas that might be affected.
And in the event that those high-lying areas do have a problem, is the city going to be in a position to help in terms of mobile facilities and so on? So
from City of Johannesburg's perspective, according to their analysis and their preparations, there shouldn't be a situation that it should happen, but should it happen that certain areas don't have water, then we do know that mobile water stations are then sent out, Jojo tanks, etc., to help and assist in those areas. But they're hoping that we don't get to that stage and water continues to just, you know, come through.
Yes. So my understanding is that 48 hours is 2 days, 54 hours is 58 hours is a little bit extra.
Yes.
Right now the message is don't stockpile during this time.
Yes, that's the big message. Don't stockpile. Don't keep up water anywhere. Just continue as usual. And remember that we're always in level 1 water restrictions. So, you know, don't water your gardens during the daytime. You know, the usual things. Don't fill up your pools during this time. Just use water sparingly. Use it responsibly during this time.
Yes.
Ensure that your necessities can be done. Don't go out and now, you know, fill up your pool.
One last thing, Hasina, you did mention something about Ekurhuleni and Soweto. Any comments there?
So Soweto has already run out of water yesterday, and their reservoirs were being filled this morning, so they're back to normal. But this has nothing to do with issues of the maintenance that's being done or the infrastructure that's being maintained. Similarly, in Ekurhuleni, they already had water issues in the weekend. Those are already issues that are already outside of it. So it could be burst pipes, it could be reservoirs not being filled properly. So these are not related to the maintenance issues that are currently being held by Rand Water.
All right, super. Thank you very much, Hasina, for your time and your insights there. My colleague Hasina Gori reporting on the water restrictions.